A lot of people are afraid of chickens, but if you've ever seen this chicken, you'd be afraid of chickens forever. This video is based off of a no sleep Reddit post. So without further ado, let's jump right into the story. I had always loved animals. My parents were farmers, and we raised pigs, cows, chickens, and occasionally lambs for sale. I spent most of my childhood wandering around our pastures with my pet dog and my trusty stick. The hours I spent pretending to battle trolls under the hay bales or exploring the woods behind the farm will forever be some of my fondest memories. That is until I was 14 and I found Creepy Chicken. It was spring of 2006. The baby animals were all grown up and being prepared for sale, and my job was to wrangle them up and walk them to the barn. One day, while gathering up the pigs, I heard a squawk and looked over to see a chicken standing on top of the water tower at the edge of our property. It was an older Rhode Island red hen, large and heavy with a nasty disposition. She had gotten loose from the flock several times before, and my father had to go chase her down. I tried to climb the ladder to get her down, but she snapped at me and flew away before I reached the top. I had no choice but to come back down and wait for my dad. He told me to get the shotgun and meet him by the truck. My heart sank. Dad never used that shotgun unless he was hunting or dealing with predators. I knew exactly what he was planning to do. We walked out onto the field and waited. I felt a lump form in my throat as I watched the big red dot appear on the side of the water tank. Pop, pop, pop. My dad must have hit her 3 times before she finally jumped off the tank and ran into the trees. We both stared at the spot where she had landed and then at each other. Dad swore under his breath, shouldered the gun, and started running after her. I stood there frozen in place as I heard 2 more gunshots followed by silence. When my dad returned, he looked pale and shaken. His hands were still holding the gun like he was bracing himself for something. "She's dead," he said quietly, almost afraid to say it aloud. "We got her." Relief flooded through me, and I allowed myself a small smile. But when I turned to follow him, I noticed something in his hand. It wasn't a clump of feathers or a piece of the water tank like I had expected. It was a cell phone, my cell phone. I didn't remember dropping anything, and I certainly hadn't taken it with me. Dad handed it over. "You dropped this by the tank," he said. "I saw it fall out of your pocket when you climbed down the ladder." I took it and examined it. There was dirt and grass stuck in the corner of the screen, and the battery was dead. When I powered it on, I could see that the home screen wallpaper was a picture of me and my friends from middle school. Something about that seemed wrong, though. None of us had been wearing the same clothes in that picture, and it looked much lower quality than the rest of the images. Stored on my phone, I checked the date and time settings to find that the photo was taken in January 1984. My dad looked horrified. "How can that be?" He whispered, "That's impossible. I know that was the year my brother died." I shivered. My uncle had drowned in a freak accident at our family lake house the winter of 1984. He had been ice skating on the lake with my cousin when the ice gave way. He pulled my cousin onto a nearby patch of land and called for help, but he lost his footing and fell back into the water. By the time emergency workers arrived, he was gone. The circumstances surrounding his death were so strange that a local paranormal investigator had written a story about it and had included the tale in a book he had published detailing local legends. "Let's go inside," Dad said quickly. "I'll call animal control and tell them to bring another cage out here. This is just getting ridiculous." I wanted to argue, to insist that whatever was in the cage was a chicken and that Dad needed to hear me out, but something in his tone made me stop. I couldn't put my finger on it. It was like a primal fear gripping him, making him unable to speak or think clearly. Was this just grief over the loss of his prized bird, or was he reacting to something else? I couldn't be sure. As we drove home in silence, I thought about the picture on my phone. Had it really been taken 30 years ago? How did the photo end up in my phone? I had bought it from Boost Mobile the summer before, but how could such an old photo have been on it? Had whoever owned the phone before me somehow uploaded the image? But if they had, why wouldn't they have uploaded others? I knew that I needed answers, but I also knew that I didn't want to upset my dad any more than I already had. Whatever it was that lived in the woods behind our farm was clearly a problem. And whatever it was, it had now taken up residence in my cell phone. That night, I dreamed about chickens. They weren't any ordinary birds, though. They were huge, grotesque things with gnashing teeth, sharp claws, and leathery wings. They stalked through the woods, their eyes burning red in the darkness. I woke up screaming. Mom rushed into my room, kneeling beside my bed and asking what was wrong. I could only shake my head and whisper, "The chickens." She helped me get dressed and go downstairs for breakfast, where Dad was waiting for me with a cup of hot chocolate. "Everything okay, honey?" Mom asked. "You were yelling in your sleep?" I nodded mutely, taking the proffered drink and hiding in its steam. I didn't want to tell them about my dream. What would they say? That it was just a dream? That I shouldn't worry about it? I didn't want to be ridiculed. That afternoon, I went to town with my mother to return my broken phone and buy a new one. The clerk in the electronics store looked at the ancient device like it was a dinosaur and offered me a replacement without even trying to repair it. As we approached the counter, I glanced at the dusty display of secondhand phones and saw a familiar face staring back at me. It was the exact same make and model as my old phone, and it was sporting the same hideous wallpaper. With a growing sense of dread, I asked the clerk if it was possible to change the home screen picture. She smiled and explained that the image was set as wallpaper for the lock screen and home screen. It was part of the phone's software. Oh yeah, I lied. I guess I just forgot about that. I paid for the phone and practically ran to my car. I didn't want to stay in that store another second longer than necessary. For the next few days, I tried everything I could think of to remove the image from my phone, but it was no use. It was as if it were burned onto the phone itself. The local phone repair shop didn't know how to remove it, and the customer service reps I spoke with either laughed at me or hung up on me. To say I was frustrated would be an understatement. I hated the fact that nobody believed me, and I hated the creepy image on my phone even more. I threw the phone into my backpack and left it there, too afraid to look at it. One evening, I gathered up my courage and took the phone out of my bag. Maybe if I wiped the screen clean, the image would vanish. Maybe if I turned the phone upside down, maybe if I kept it in a box. Nothing I did worked. It was then that I noticed something peculiar about the image. At first, I hadn't thought much of it. It was a group of kids in front of the old farmhouse, which used to stand where our pasture currently was. I had spent countless hours playing in that house as a child. The wood was soft and rotting, so it was easy to carve my initials and names of my friends into its frame. I have forgotten all about that until I saw the picture again. Now that I look closer, I realize that none of the children in the photo were carving their initials into the house. One girl was standing with her arms crossed, looking directly at the camera. Another boy was sitting on the steps leading up to the porch, and yet another was lying on the ground, staring up at the sky. But there was something about them, something about their posture, the tilt of their heads, the curve of their smiles. Something about them was very wrong. I gasped and stumbled back. Their faces, or what remained of them, were stretched into grotesque grins, revealing rows upon rows of needle-like teeth. They were all staring at me, their eyes wide and black, bottomless pits. Their skin was a patchwork of bloody, torn flesh and bone. Their limbs were twisted at unnatural angles. I screamed and dropped the phone, scrambling backward. As I did, I caught sight of my reflection in the glass screen. I looked like the children, my face a mask of terror. Suddenly, the phone began to vibrate. I stared at it in horror as the image on the screen changed. It was a video this time, shot in the same grainy style as the photograph. This time it was just the girl from the porch. She was smiling wider now, and her tongue lolled out the side of her mouth. She said something, but it wasn't comprehensible. It sounded like fingernails scraping down a chalkboard. Then she opened her mouth fully and everything went black. I fled to my room and locked the door, throwing the phone under my bed. I didn't sleep that night. I spent it curled up on the floor in the corner, hugging my knees to my chest, watching the door in case the things from my nightmares came for me. In the morning, I called my mom into my room. She looked at the phone, then at me, concern etched on her face. "Can I get someone to fix this for you?" she asked. "If not, I can call the store and see if they'll take the old phone back." I shook my head frantically, pushing the phone toward her. "No, please," I begged. "Take it with you. Please get rid of it." She hesitated for a moment, then took the phone and left. I heard the sound of a car door opening and closing, and then my sister appeared in the doorway. She had come home from college for the weekend. Seeing my wild-eyed, tearful face, she rushed to my side. "What's wrong?" she cried. "Why are you crying?" I pointed at the door. "The phone," I whispered urgently. "It has the girl from the video in it. She's alive." My sister looked confused, but followed me to the phone. When she saw the girl's picture, her eyes widened. "Oh, wow," she breathed. That's awesome. Can I take a picture with her?" I recoiled in horror. "No, don't touch it," I yelled. "You don't understand. She's not real. She's evil. She killed the last person who owned this phone." My sister stared at me as if I had grown a second head. "Stop being stupid," she said finally. "It's just a phone. Now leave me alone." She turned away and started rummaging through her backpack. "Hey, can I borrow this thing for a minute?" "I want to show Michael." I screamed at her to stop, but it was too late. She had already dialed the number and held the phone out to the grinning girl. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. And if you want to hear more stories like this, then stay tuned for more content.